When I was 7 years old, my brother was busy chasing after a poor girl, which resulted in me being abducted. By the time I finally made it back home, that poor girl had become a foster daughter. She was dressed in expensive princess gown, pinched her nose, and looked down on me with disdain. She smelled so bad. Could she have a contagious disease? That's when I realized my foster sister was also my sister-in-law. In the end, she tortured me to death, and my parents and brother turned a blind eye. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the age of 5. That year, my parents' rival targeted my brother, planning to abduct him to threaten my parents into compromising. This time, I chose to pretend to be blind. Useless brother, along with biased parents, just go to hell. Little girl, go tell your parents to give up this project, or else your brother won't come back, said the middle-aged man wearing a duckbill cap and a mask, his grip tight on my brother. At that time, my brother was still a child, innocent and not malicious. The look in his eyes wasn't fierce but rather filled with fear and pleading. His SpongeBob jeans were already soaked in the middle, he wet himself. I pretended to look scared, nodding vigorously like a chick pecking grains. The kidnapper was pleased, picked up my brother, and left smiling, driving a black Honda without a license plate. How audacious of the kidnapper. Wow, it smells so good. What is it? I sniffed and followed the scent to the entrance of a small supermarket, where colorful cotton candies looked delicious. When I arrived home with the cotton candy, my parents were already home, and they wondered, "Where's your brother?" I licked the cotton candy, saying in a childish voice, "I don't know, but cotton candy is delicious. Do you want some, Mom and Dad?" After searching the house and the neighborhood, realizing my brother was missing, they panicked and started calling the police. But in those days without surveillance cameras, finding the traffickers was extremely difficult. The police were puzzled. The security in your neighborhood is good, it's unlikely for traffickers to come here. I checked with the guards, and they didn't notice any suspicious people. My mom sat on the ground, crying in agony, while my dad tugged at his hair in despair. I sat on the flower bed, swinging my legs, staring at them with big, unblinking eyes. They looked so sad and distraught. But why were they so indifferent when I died in front of them in my past life? My brother's life mattered, mine didn't. In that case, then let's all perish. Posters seeking my brother were plastered all over the streets that day, even appearing on TV, with a reward of $30,000. That was a lot of money in those days. I had been wondering if the kidnapper would come forward on their own, but when the missing person poster came out, I knew my brother wouldn't come back. The possibility was almost non-existent. Every day, there were countless cases, big and small, happening, so my brother's case was temporarily put on hold. Because I remembered the license plate number in my past life, the police easily found my brother. His way of repaying me was letting me be taken when I was 7 years old. After all, we were siblings, with the same blood in our veins. It was only fair to reciprocate. As I gradually showed my intelligence and talent, occasionally suggesting some money-making projects, my parents began to emerge from the pain of losing a child. Dad happily rubbed my head. "Sophia is our lucky star, helping us earn a lot of money." I giggled. I saw on TV that rich people live in such big houses with swimming pools. It's so grand. Let's move to a big house too. Maybe we can interact with our wealthy neighbors and make even more money. My parents were intrigued by my idea, exchanging a glance. Although they could afford to buy a villa now, they still worried about my brother. What if he came back suddenly? So, I had to put an end to their thoughts and completely erase any trace of my brother from their lives. Dad decisively nodded. "All right, we'll listen to Sophia." The next day, my parents went to see houses and ultimately splurged on buying a villa in the city center, surrounded by affluent and influential people. I was cute, well-behaved, and brought homemade cookies to visit the neighbors, quickly becoming familiar with them. My parents also landed some projects through these connections, even though they didn't make much profit. But relationships were established. Using this opportunity, I suggested, "You guys are busy with work, and I'm all alone at home. How about adopting a brother to keep me company?" Why specifically a brother? Of course, it was to completely replace my brother in my parents' hearts. preventing them from showering him with all the credit the moment he returned, making him the golden child that was out of the question. Now, my parents were completely submissive to me, so of course they agreed. Parents couldn't choose for themselves, even if it was a waste. But this brother could be chosen by me, so naturally, I wanted someone who pleased me. I had an aversion to stupidity, so he couldn't be dumb. And he couldn't be ugly, as that would ruin my appetite. Most importantly, he had to have a good personality, kind-hearted. I didn't want another brother like the previous one. After visiting the welfare homes in the city, I finally found one that met all the requirements, especially the hint of fierceness in his eyes that satisfied me even more. Having seen all kinds of people and ghosts in my past life, he would be challenging to control once he grew up, but nurturing him while he was young was quite fulfilling. My brother is missing. Can you be my brother? I took a lollipop from my pocket and placed it in his slender hand, speaking softly and sweetly. I have lots of toys and snacks, and I can share half of them with my brother. Would you like to come home with me, brother? No little boy would refuse such a cute offer from me, and he was no exception. He delicately took the candy I offered, making sure not to touch my hand, seeming afraid to dirty it. I, on the other hand, took his hand enthusiastically and proudly showed him off to my parents. Mom, Dad, I like this brother. My parents were also pleased with his appearance, asked a few questions, found him obedient and polite, and agreed to adopt him. I gave him a new name, Jason. He lives across from my room, which has the same layout as mine. It used to be reserved for my brother, but now he lives there during meals. He sits in my dad's seat, which used to be where my brother sat. Gradually, he truly took over my brother's role. My parents have gotten used to including him in everything. Even private conversations are now all about our son. My brother was initially timid, but under my guidance, he became more outgoing and confident. But seeing me in a cute and vulnerable state for the first time left a deep impression on him. It led him to truly take on the role of protecting me like a sister. Every night he tells me fairy tales to help me fall asleep. He would eat the food I don't like from my plate. Even when I accidentally bumped into the table, he wished he could take the pain for me. In the blink of an eye, high school arrived, and the radiant Jason, surrounded by love, started to shine. As soon as he stepped into school, he caused a stir. Despite being older than me, he was in the same class as me, which was both my parents and his decision. To better protect me at the same time, Vivian appeared, the main culprit who tortured me to death in a past life. She looked delicate and fragile, with every expression carrying a pitiful air, especially those big watery eyes that made it hard not to feel pity. Jason, look in the direction of 3 o'clock. Is that girl pretty? Following my gaze, Jason saw Vivian in her white dress with black straight hair. Perplexed, he replied, I don't know, maybe she's the type guys like? Not just the type guys like, but also the type that my brother liked to the point of obsession, watching his own little sister suffer in agony, inching towards death. I licked my lips and asked, do you like that type? A hint of disgust flashed in his eyes, but his face remained composed as he replied, I don't like it. I scoffed, then what type do you like? He looked down at me, raising an eyebrow. I like someone arrogant, willful, domineering, and unreasonable. Vivian and I were in the same class. She wasn't admitted based on merit but through special admission, as a poor student. Every year, elite schools accept a few underprivileged students to showcase their tradition of not discriminating based on students' background. In reality, these poor students are often bullied since those who can study here are either heirs or rich kids. In my past life, because of my brother's protection, she was a queen bee here. But this time, without my brother, let's see how she fares. The first class was for introductions, and everyone took turns standing up on the platform, confident and unfazed by the spotlight. They had seen bigger scenes and naturally weren't afraid. When it was Vivian's turn, she blushed, fidgeted, and hesitated to go up. I am sorry, The teacher smiled and said, it's okay. It's our first time meeting, don't be nervous. Let's give her a warm round of applause, everyone. People clapped, but when Jason saw me not reacting, he also refrained from clapping. After several rounds of applause and people becoming impatient, Vivian still hadn't gone up. Biting her lip, her face turned even redder, tears sliding down her eyes. After this incident, everyone naturally distanced themselves from Vivian, finding her repugnant. Always in tears, those who didn't know might think others were bullying her. Disgusting, truly. Yeah, she delayed everything, didn't even leave time to use the bathroom after class. Annoying. When it's time to assign seats, make sure I'm not placed with her. This bad luck might affect my aura. The classroom wasn't exactly quiet, and Vivian could clearly hear everything. She ran to the office to complain to the teacher. This behavior might be tolerable in a normal school, but in an elite institution, it was suicidal. Due to her special circumstances, everyone was more tolerant of her. Would anyone like to sit together with Vivian? She's timid, and having a classmate to look after her would help her settle in quickly. After waiting for a while and receiving no volunteers, what they got instead were mocking laughs. The teacher cleared their throat. Vivian, who would you like to sit with? This time, Vivian wasn't shy and pointed to Jason. I want to sit with Jason. This made Jason blush, and to outsiders, they seemed quite close. The boys started teasing, while the girls all looked down on her. The teacher nodded. All right, Jason, you will sit with Vivian from now on and take care of her. Jason directly refused. Sorry, teacher, I'm allergic to tears. The classroom was silent for a few seconds before erupting into laughter. I smirked. His words were a bit of a sting. While the teacher knew it was an excuse, being the heir of our company, he didn't dare offend him. So, they found another girl who seemed easier to get along with to sit with Vivian after class. Vivian went to find Jason. She pitifully said, Jason, I didn't mean to embarrass you earlier. I just find you very familiar, as if I've seen you somewhere before. No wonder my brother in the past life was captivated by her. Her strategies were effective. On stage, she steadfastly chose to satisfy guys' vanity, and if that didn't work, she would lower her stance in private to play the emotional card. Ordinary guys might fall for that, but not Jason. Are you a dove? Vivian's eyes welled up again, biting her lip. Jason, do you have any misconceptions about me? Or did someone badmouth me to you? From a young age, my family has been looked down upon, and I just wanted to make a friend, not be so lonely. Jason laughed. Then you should go find female friends, right? Vivian blurted out, girls are so troublesome. I prefer playing with boys. There's no drama, and it's more fun. In the classroom, there was an instant chorus of disgusted sounds from the girls. Jason smirked. I don't think all girls are like what you say, except for you back then. Even with thick skin, Vivian couldn't stand it anymore, her face turning red as she returned to her seat and cried. No one comforted her, only mocking. It's like a toad craving swan meat, but failing to see the clear rejection and still seeking humiliation. Exactly. Jason is the only one she fancies? They say girls are devious, but she takes the cake. Leaning on my chin, enjoying the show, I chuckled and asked, Jason, this is the first time I've seen you being so sharp-tongued. He opened the thermos cup for me and gestured for me to drink water, saying, I don't like the people you don't like. Taking small sips of water, I teasingly said, you're lying, you clearly don't like her. Raising an eyebrow, he looked surprised and said, you caught me? I blinked and asked, why don't you like her? After pondering for a moment, he replied, her eyes are full of calculation and greed indeed, having chosen my brother, who is much smarter than having no choice at all. Vivian started to be isolated and ignored, no one talked to her anymore, and even when she tried to start a conversation, no one responded. In a sarcastic tone, she said, I'm a girl with deep scheming, go find boys. The boys sneered, we can't compete with Jason, go find him. Normally, things would calm down after a while, everyone would forgive her after attending class obediently. But her mind worked differently. During a basketball match, she went to deliver water to Jason. Jason, you play basketball really well. All the students watched, with boys from other classes laughing and teasing on the side. It seemed like an attempt to morally pressure Jason, or perhaps garner sympathy from everyone, especially from other students who weren't aware of the situation. Jason coldly chuckled, even if I play well, it's not for you to see. Stop staring. Taking a few steps, he turned back to add, I don't know how many good brothers you have, but I'm not your brother. Stop calling me that, thanks. Then, he walked towards me, noticing that I was lazily watching the commotion. Without a word, he snatched the water bottle I was drinking from, finished it, and handed me the empty bottle. Are you looking at her, or at me? Taking the mineral water bottle, I teased, how can you always resist her charms? Jason chuckled, do you think all men are fools? She's obviously scheming something, who would fall for that? Many people do fall for it, like the brother in a past life, even dad and mom. They, who have seen through countless people, how could they not see through her obvious tricks? The only reason is that they think she's more important than me. After the basketball match, Jason had a fan club, consisting of his admirers. When we met in the restroom, I casually remarked, there's a girl in our class who keeps bothering my brother, he's really annoyed. How could a girl have such thick skin? No matter how he rejects her, it's useless and severely affecting my brother's studies. If someone could stop her, it would be great. That afternoon, Vivian came out of the toilet all wet, knowing she had angered everyone but was too scared to tell the teacher. I detest bullying in schools and have rescued other girls before. But only when I see Vivian being bullied, I feel a sense of satisfaction. Half a month later, Vivian finally gave up. She no longer pestered Jason. But from time to time, Jason mingled with Vivian, keeping others misunderstood, and the bullying continued until she applied to transfer to the worst class in the grade, and the turmoil subsided. In that class was a wealthy playboy, handsome but a player. Seeing Vivian enter the restroom, I slowly followed with the girls in the class. Ken is quite handsome, can you ask if he has a girlfriend? Sophia, are you also interested? But he's really good looking and wealthy. He should be hard to get, seems wild, but I like that. I like him too, I think he's cooler than your brother. Soon, Vivian started dating Ken, often showing affection in front of me. Every time, I turned away to avoid bursting into laughter, but she thought I was upset, making her even more pleased. Soon, photos of Vivian and Ken's romance spread within the boys' circle. Coming from an entertainment background, Ken was exposed to a more liberal lifestyle, often indulging in group activities with people of all ages, creating a thrilling atmosphere. While I was admiring the photos, Jason appeared behind me, snatched the phone, and his ears turned red glancing at the images. How can you look at these things? I chuckled, do you want to look too? Let's look together. Upon seeing the main characters, Jason quietly returned the phone to me. Before we knew it, Vivian had had 6 abortions for Ken. Her once pitiful appearance vanished, replaced by smoking, tattoos, and short skirts, a typical rebellious girl. As for me and Jason, our academic performance improved, ranked first and second in the grade, becoming the pride of teachers and classmates. Every year, I would host a birthday banquet, inviting classmates to deepen our relationships. It's also a good opportunity for parents to meet and collaborate. Many at school take pride in attending my birthday banquet. This time, it was my coming-of-age celebration, very grand with a few big shots from the circle attending. I prepared a big gift for my parents. Mom, Dad, the search for you was hard. As my parents and the big shots were toasting and chatting, the door suddenly opened, and a man's wailing voice filled with despair and sorrow echoed, I'm finally home. He sat on the floor, crying in pain. Bald, ragged clothes, a fierce scar on his face, giving off a menacing vibe, especially with a foul smell lingering around him. Everyone quietly stepped back, the melodious piano music also coming to a halt. Mom asked in confusion, who are you? My brother looked up excitedly, tears and snot flowing, in a sorry sight, Mom, Dad, it's Leo, your son, don't you remember me? As he wanted to hug Mom, she instinctively stepped back a few paces, covering her nose as it was too stinky, hurriedly. I said disgustedly, why do you smell so bad? Could you have some contagious disease? I repeated Vivian's words to him exactly when my brother saw me, with eyes bloodshot. He approached me, ready to hit me. Sophia, if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be in this situation. Jason immediately stood in front of me, looking coldly, don't bully my sister. I poked my head out innocently and said, Jason, stay away from him. He looks like a criminal, just released from prison, right? Everyone quietly backed away. My brother went completely crazy, started overturning tables, and angrily shouted, "How long was I gone? You found someone to replace me so quickly. You are all too much, I hate you." The security guards arrived in time to control my brother. But the banquet was forcibly interrupted, and when they left, they all had different expressions. What happened tonight would spread throughout the circle by tomorrow morning. The business my parents and the big shots were discussing also ended abruptly. My dad was furious, ranting as soon as he left. Why couldn't he come back at a better time? He had to come back now and make us all lose face. Mom rubbed her temples, seeming to have a headache from the fumes. This child really came back at the wrong time. When my brother downstairs heard this, he turned red with anger. "I am your biological son. You don't care at all how I came back. I have been dreaming of the moment when I could come home and have a happy family reunion. How could you treat me like this?" The 6-foot-tall man sat on the ground crying, feeling so wronged. Unfortunately, because he had just embarrassed my parents, they not only didn't feel sorry for him, but also considered him embarrassing and uncouth. Dad waved his hand. "Enough. What kind of man cries like this? Now that you're back, stay home and don't go causing trouble outside." My brother wiped his tears and snot with his sleeve, still sobbing, pointing fiercely at Jason. "Get rid of him. I'm back, and having this substitute here is just disgusting." Before I could speak, my parents said in unison, "No." My brother clenched his fists, veins popping in his forehead. "Mom, Dad, I'm your biological son." Mom comforted him, "We know, but Jason has gotten along with us very well all these years, and everyone likes him." Dad added, "Learn from him more." Hearing this, my brother couldn't hold back anymore. He raised his fist to hit Jason, who slightly moved aside, avoiding it perfectly. My brother stumbled forward and fell due to the sofa, blocking my parents, who didn't see the subtle move and thought my brother just lost his balance. My brother fell, with blood coming from his nose, not receiving any consolation but scolding. Dad scolded, "Shameless thing, if you cause more trouble, I will kick you out." My brother trembled with anger but dared not cause any more trouble. Because he realized that this family wasn't the same as he remembered, and my parents didn't love him anymore. In the evening, my brother, looking at Jason's large room, spoke venomously, "From now on, I'll sleep here, you go sleep in the guest room." At that moment, with my parents not around, I dropped the act and sneered, "Leo, you still haven't figured out your place in this house. During the time you were kidnapped, Jason had already taken your place, not just in the love of our parents but also in your inheritance rights. Jason is handsome, talented, and not only good at studying but also very popular. People in our circle like to hang out with him and he has brought in a lot of profit for the company. You don't really think your bloodline can outweigh that, do you? Better be nice to Jason in the future. Otherwise, when our parents get old, you'll be kicked out and have to live a life of begging again." Jason stood quietly behind me, not saying a word but emanating a powerful presence. Leo was furious, unable to contain his rage, wanting to break something but refrained, fearing Dad would hear and kick him out. "Fine, you two just wait and see." After Jason escorted me back to my room, he asked, "Do you really hate your brother?" I nodded, "Yeah, I want to kill him." Jason looked at me with a complex expression but didn't try to console me. I licked my lips. "Jason, do you think Vivian and my brother are made for each other?" Jason thought for a moment, then nodded, "Perfect match." I smirked, proud of my decision to pick him as my brother, who never questioned any of my decisions. As the weather turned cold, Ken's wheezing days finally came to an end, declaring bankruptcy, and naturally couldn't afford to play with Vivian anymore. When Ken was around, Vivian was particularly arrogant and bullied a lot of classmates, but now without his protection, everyone started to bully her again. I had someone trap her in an alleyway and beat her up, then I played the hero and naturally invited her over to our house. Vivian was desperate for a lifeline, so she didn't refuse me, trying to please me with her words. I smiled gently. The past is in the past. Let's be good friends from now on. Vivian nodded hurriedly, afraid I would regret it. I gave her a set of short skirts and asked her to take a bath in my brother's room. Since my brother had just moved in, the room was empty and no different from a guest room. And my brother, tired from playing games in the garden, happened to return to his room. 5 minutes passed, and it was still quiet inside. I spread my hands. Jason, you lose. Jason put this month's allowance into my hands. You understand human nature better than me. I smiled. When it comes to human nature, you know better. But when it comes to the nature of beasts, I know better. That night, Vivian stayed for dinner, reverting to her initial appearance, obedient and gentle. With my help to embellish her image, although Vivian's family background isn't great, she is very diligent and hardworking in her studies, never yielding to her fauteuil temperament is also very good, and we all love to hang out with her. There are also many boys who like her, but her standards are high, and most boys don't measure up. At that moment, Jason kindly picked up a piece of ribs for her. You can't eat spicy, this one is not spicy. Vivian was pleasantly surprised. Leo's eyes were full of determination, and I suppressed a smile, struggling to hold back the smile on my lips. Soon Leo and Vivian started dating. Initially, my parents had some objections, thinking Vivian's background was too humble for my brother. But he persisted, believing that true love was most important. As he expressed this, he glanced provocatively at Jason, who lowered his head with a sad expression. Leo became even more determined, unwavering. Eventually, my parents reluctantly agreed. Vivian, who had had 6 abortions due to a fragile constitution, soon became pregnant again. My father was especially pleased, saying, "Good. My son, we have an heir now. If it's a boy, I'll reward Vivian $1 million. Vivian's eyes instantly lit up. Thank you, uncle. My mother looked gently at her belly, her eyes also full of happiness. Seizing the opportunity, I suggested, since Vivian is pregnant too, why not have a grand wedding to introduce Leo to everyone? They naturally agreed and quickly scheduled the wedding for the end of the month. Passing by the study in the evening, I overheard my parents whispering. They talked about Leo wasting his years outside and being unable to inherit the family business. Although Sophia was outstanding, being a girl, the company couldn't be passed on to her. If this child was a boy, he would inherit the company. If not, Vivian was expected to keep having children until a boy was born. Despite the company's current success being due to Sophia, fate decided she wasn't a boy. I smirked, realizing that even in this life, gender prejudice persisted. So, I decided to give them a big gift. Leo and Vivian's wedding, though hasty, was extravagant in every aspect. Impressive wedding, Jason, I admired. He looked at the USB drive in my hand, and smirked. Are you planning to destroy it? I caught the challenging gaze from my brother, raised my drink toward him, took a sip, and cheekily said, just to help them remember, right? As the wedding march slowly played, Leo and Vivian walked hand in hand, somewhat resembling a handsome couple. Dad and Mom each gave speeches on stage, obviously penned by someone else, but heartfelt. Tears filled their eyes. Jason peeled a piece of candy for me. I chuckled. Why? I'm not a kid. He playfully fed it to me, and I teased, sweet indeed. He squeezed my cheek, then pushed it into my mouth. I rubbed my slightly sore cheek and left for the backstage. Once there, I immediately said, go enjoy the banquet, I'll take care of things here. The video on the screen suddenly switched from Leo and Vivian's affectionate moment to Vivian and Ken's video, causing a gasp from the audience. Leo and Vivian, thinking it was a surprise, became more invigorated. People shouted, look back, look back. They turned around, expecting a surprise from their parents. The smile on Vivian's face froze as she realized the truth. Leo's expression turned hostile, accusing her of deceiving him. Vivian, pale with fear, attempted to explain, but Leo's anger erupted as he lashed out at her, causing a horrifying scene. The guests tried to intervene, but Leo was uncontrollable. The police finally arrived, ending the chaos. Leo was taken to the police station, Dad, Mom, and Vivian to the hospital. Vivian had a miscarriage, a broken spine, 8 broken ribs, and had been in intensive care for 7 hours. Despite surviving, she would be confined to a bed for life, lacking dignity, unable to wear pants. Mom suffered a mild concussion, but Dad needed 2 porcelain teeth. Leo received an 8-year sentence for the assault. I thought my parents would hire the best lawyer to reduce Leo's sentence, but they disowned him. They only realized how much pain he caused when they were affected. After my exams, I ranked first, Jason coming close behind. I grinned widely, feeling proud. The humiliation my parents faced at Leo's wedding was now replaced by their joy at my academic success. They finally understood, I was their only pride. After graduation, I took over my parents' company, planning to sell it off and destroy their hard work. But the money was too substantial, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. Being the CEO wasn't so bad after all. Jason became a professor, and during a game of truth or dare at a high school reunion, when asked about my preference, I sarcastically replied, I like the refined scoundrel type, like a professor. My classmates screamed in amusement. Since then, Jason's trademark became gold-rimmed glasses with a white shirt. I arranged for Vivian to be sent to a mental hospital, where she eventually lost her mind. Leo suffered in prison and ended his life by swallowing a toothbrush due to severe mental distress. It is said that he died in great agony, mumbling my name with strange words about rebirth. I've been thinking about how to arrange things so my parents don't get their hands dirty but still suffer. But in the end, they beat me to it. They were hit by a big truck when they went out by car, both severely injured. I comforted the truck driver, I know it wasn't intentional. You're not to blame. No insurance on the truck, right? It's okay, no need to compensate. I'll help you repair the truck. Everyone calls me the most conscientious businessman. Turning to the doctor, I said, donate all the usable organs from my parents and their bodies as well. I wanted to say about saving the doctors, but I stopped myself. Okay, thank you, really thank you. I express my sincere gratitude to those who receive help. I accepted all the praise and honor with a smile, knowing I deserve it. Stepping out of the hospital, I saw Jason waving at me in his newly bought sports car. The weather is really nice today.